We are live. Welcome back.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah. How are you, Nathan?
Good. Yeah, things have been got a great start already. Woke up today to like some nice positive numbers in high rise. People are saying nice things on Twitter. We ended the year, it was like last week maybe, or December 31st or something. Someone wrote, included us in a nice list in Inc. magazine or whatever. Or Inc. Online about top 5 tools to use if you're on the go. So it's just good. It was a really great end of the year to see that stuff. It's been a good start so far.
Good. You're frozen now, by the way. Your camera's frozen.
And
I hear your audio though.
Weird. And now you're frozen too to me.
Interesting. Wonder if our internet's messed up at work here, since we're both at the office. I can hear you though.
I can hear you just fine as well.
Well, let's just keep going then, because who knows what's going to happen. People are saying it looks fine, so something strange is going on. Anyway, I see you now. Well, hey, everyone, welcome back to Work in Progress. For those who are new to the show, Nathan and I talk about product development, product design, product issues, managing products, managing teams, all the stuff we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, stuff we're struggling with, stuff we figured out that works well, stuff we don't know how to figure out yet. And since we do this on Blab, we take questions from the audience here. So if you guys have any questions for us, you can do a /Q in the chat over on the right hand side, and it'll show up on the left hand side for us, and then we can take some questions. So if people want to know anything about building products or marketing or building a business or anything you're struggling with, anything you want to get our take on, happy to provide some there. By the way, what's interesting about January, what's interesting about the beginning of the year for us is that January through March are typically our 3 biggest months of the year, which is interesting. A lot of people are surprised by that because, like in the retail world, it's the last few months of the year because the holiday season, everyone's shopping. But for us, it's the first few months. And the only thing I can chalk it up to is that people, Basecamp 3 is not expensive. It starts at $29 a month. So it's not necessarily that there's a new budget, but that it's a new year, it's fresh. Let's get stuff together this year. Let's get organized this year. We've got stuff all over the place. Let's get our things together and get everyone pointed in the same direction. And I get, this has been true for 12 years now. Well, 11 years, because the first year we launched in February, but about 11 years now. First few months of the year have always been the busiest. Do you know what it's like for high rise? Is it similar?
Similar. We saw some, it goes in both directions. Like there's some people, I guess, like in December who are kind of cleaning stuff up or like, hey, we didn't get any use. So you see the both kinds of trends. And then it does seem like there's kind of a bump right now. It's still early. It's like, when in the scheme of things, we've only been doing this, my version of high rise or taking over high rise for like a year and a half. So it's hard to really know what's like a trend yet, like seasonality wise. There's a lot of stuff in flux last year, just the new team and stuff. So, but yeah, like I said, so far so good. It does seem like that people are very interested in kind of reorganizing or getting organized this year. And so we're seeing a nice little bump here at the beginning. Hopefully it keeps continuing.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to try and figure out something Lynette and I talk a lot about. And I'm curious what you guys think. Do you try to play into that at all? Like, do you guys do any kind of marketing experiments or anything around the new year?
We have in the past. I'd like to do more of that, to be honest. We're a little bit like, we're not very seasonally aware around here in terms of our general messaging and marketing. And I'd like to see us become a lot more seasonally aware. We did throw a little party hat on the Happy Camper Basecamp logo. If you go to basecamp.com right now, you'll see a little party hat 2016 New Year thing. We did that sort of on a whim this weekend, but I would like to be spending more time around seasonal tweaks and adjustments because I do think that they're relevant, and it helps to show that people are there. At the very least, helps to show people are working and paying attention to what's going on in the world right now. So while we're not going to necessarily comment on current events, we can definitely comment on Valentine's Day and the New Year and July 4th for U.S. customers and other holidays for other customers, that sort of thing. So it's something I hope we do a lot more of this year. So far, we haven't really been that on top of it. Here and there, yes, but not enough.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I think we're trying to figure out how to do that quite, it may just be putting something on the marketing page talking about like, hey, now that it is a new year, like let's, but that doesn't seem like enough. But I don't know what it is. We've taken some focus now and kind of we're looking at like tasks and things specifically about getting organized. Like tasks are up there. So hopefully this month there'll be a couple announcements about some improvements we're making to tasks. I feel like that plays a little bit into like what we think is happening right now. Obviously, with that, just like you said, like people trying to get organized for the season. So yeah, that's a little stuff we're trying to do about it.
Yep. Whenever I see other companies that I use their products or services or something, and or it's simply like I walk into a store and it's just decorated for the holidays, even if it's a holiday I don't celebrate, like it doesn't matter. It's just like, oh, someone put some extra effort into this. Someone's paying attention. It just feels nice, and I think we should be doing more of that here. So that's something hopefully we get to. There's some questions piling up actually. Do you mind if I just jump? Let's take this bottom one here. Adrian wants to know, how do you stay motivated? I went real hard in 2015, but I'm starting to lose steam. By the way, there's snow on the screen in here.
Yeah.
I don't know who did that, but it's fantastic. There we go. Proof of actually what's happening outside our window here in Chicago. About motivation, I think the second part of your question is the most interesting part, which is saying I went real hard in 2015, but I'm starting to lose steam. I think that there's, to be honest, an epidemic in our industry specifically of people trying to go too hard, too long, all the time. I just wrote my recent Inc. article, which will be out in, I think it's March, about sleep and how sleep and time off, and I'm not talking about being lazy and like skipping work. I'm talking about like 40 hours is plenty of time a week. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours. And sleep is probably one of the best productivity tools that has ever been invented. And your brain can work while you are resting. That's what sleep is really good at, is working through problems and sifting through things and figuring out creative solutions to things. And I think if you're working really hard and going too hard, you don't give your mind enough time to recover and to rest and to think for you while you don't have to think. So I think one suggestion I would give you for 2016 is to not go as hard and get motivated by being able to end work at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock and get motivated by the weekends and get motivated by having a good night's sleep, 8 hours a night, something like that. I think that's another, like, just a different angle on it versus, of course, you want to be excited about the work that you're doing, but you also got to prepare your mind and your body for the work that you're doing. And I just feel like this lack of sleep. I was at this conference recently in New York, and on stage, some people are bragging about the fact they work 18 hours a day and they're exhausted. And it's like, what are you talking about? How could you brag about that? So anyway, that's a little bit of a commentary on that.
Yeah. And I don't know if many people realize, I mean, you guys have talked about this in the past, but I always think it's a really important thing to bring up. But like, you guys didn't slave away making Basecamp in the beginning, and you don't do it now. But like, I think it's, David likes to really talk about how like you guys started with, I think, working on Basecamp, right? Like 8 hours a week or something. You guys had started as kind of like a part-time client of yours a decade ago or 12 years ago or something. I mean, so it was like, you guys didn't take that approach of like, working 24 hours a day trying to get this project done. And like you said, you brought up a really good point. Like there's a lot of scientific evidence that it's very important to get your unconscious mind working on problems. If you're constantly awake, like you're eliminating a huge part of how your biology even wants to rest, to come up with new ideas. There's a lot of evidence that sleep and just working on things in your unconscious mind are keys to like being even creative. So if you're just awake constantly, you're doing yourself a disservice. And it's not healthy. Like I remember I started the second business that I ran, the second time I was in Y Combinator, there was a moment where I was up really late. I was working long hours. I took some, what do they call that? It's like a shot of energy drink. I don't even know what you call that stuff anymore. You know what I'm talking about?
5 hour energy.
5 hour energy. I took some 5 hour
Yeah.
energy. My heart was racing. I thought I was going to die. Like it was so scary. And it's just like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, I'm not even working that efficiently right now. Now I'm wasting more time, like trying to like calm myself down and worried about my health. Like it backfires and it just doesn't, you might gain a little bit in the short term, but then you just screw yourself for the long term. It doesn't even out well. It's a net negative.
And yeah, and related to that too is like there might be sometimes you do need to pull some extended hours, and you want to make sure that you're rested so you can do that.
Yeah.
So when it really matters, if there is some sort of emergency or whatever, that you're prepared to do that, and then it's not just like, oh my God, I've been working 16, now I got to put in 19. It's like you're truly exhausted. So
yeah,
and there's it's also like it's interesting about the science about it all. And I'm not a scientist. I can't pretend to really understand all the science, but you'll die from not sleeping faster than you'll die from not eating. And when people are interrogated under pressure, tortured, basically, one of the techniques they use is sleep deprivation, right? It's usually not food deprivation. They'll still feed you because they need you to sort of be conscious at some level. But sleep deprivation makes people go crazy. Yep. And it's just, that's the technique. So like what we're doing that to ourselves every day, we cannot expect to get good work in or out if we're putting that kind of exhaustion in. So anyway, long answer to that question, but I hope that that helps and changes your outlook a bit on 2016. Cool. Oops, let me close this one here. All right. So I'm not sure who this one's directed to. We'll throw it out there. Maybe he can clarify. Customer service issue last year. I'm not sure what issue that was specifically. So if you can you jump in and clarify that in the comments, and we'll come back to you in a minute. Let's see here. Oops, I'm trying to close this out. Oh, okay. You want to take this one, Nathan?
Sure. When starting a new project, would you rather start talking with customers or building the team that knows the customer needs better than you? Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different angles I guess I'd approach this at, but it's like I'm never a fan of like building teams in advance of stuff. I know there's a culture in, especially with friends that I even have, but building these big teams, anticipating that like, you get some money, you build a team, and then you hope along the way you're going to find yourself into kind of a profitable territory. I mean, this is a very, there's a lot of people I know who have ramped up companies like this. They think they're onto something, but then they're gonna, they're just concerned about like finding the best people. And now I'm gonna, find that profitable product. I don't know. I like to start things with tiny teams by myself. I did draft all by myself. And now with Highrise, I'm taking things very slowly. I mean, there's a lot of pain with some of the stuff. We bump into things where we're like, man, I really wish we had someone else helping us with this. But it's like, I don't want to just go crazy hiring more people. We can afford it, but it's a pain in the ass. It brings in some new problems. So it's like, I want us to learn the problems as best as we can before we start hiring other people that we think are going to know it better than us. So we're really careful about building this team to hopefully in the future come up with solutions to problems that, customers might have. So, yeah, and what you mentioned starting with even customers, like I've talked a lot about this on the show and in blog posts, but I'm a big fan of really start plan A, and it should be, you should eliminate all other options before you move to the plan B, which is work on stuff that is hurting you, work on stuff that you know really well. It's a huge magnitude harder to start talking with customers and understanding their problems that you don't understand. I mean, you definitely want to talk to customers and get their insights, but if you are just doing that, you don't have any idea like what kind of problem space they have, it makes everything so much more complicated, so much harder to come up with interesting insights. So I'm a big fan of just working on your own problems.
Yeah, I typically agree that at the core, it's probably really useful to be solving the problem that you understand the best. And one of the primary reasons for that is that you have a better shot at judging quality when you understand all the subtleties around what quality means for that particular problem. So if you're always trying to imagine how someone else, how something will work for someone else, I mean, you should get to absolutely get to understand the lives of your customers and what they're struggling with. All should absolutely, but I feel like you've got to start first with yourself so you can understand the deep subtleties of this. It's very difficult to perceive quality through someone else's eyes and to really understand. And when I mean quality, I don't mean like fit and finish necessarily. I mean like product fit, basically. It's very, very difficult to really know what it's like to use something on behalf of somebody else. Not impossible, and it should help color your experience, but I feel like it's really good to have that foundational knowledge yourself and have those foundational experiences yourself. So that's my take on that.
Because there's just information that can't even be communicated. Like I can't tell you how to ride a bike. There's nothing I can tell you enough to get you to figure out how to ride a bike. The only way you're going to be able to ride a bike and get good at it is doing it yourself. And so like, there's just piece of information that I don't feel like anybody can, no matter how good you are at listening, you just can't take it in without like really experiencing it. So yeah.
Cool. Let's see. What are your thoughts on multitasking? I think it's an extremely difficult thing to do well. And I question, first of all, it depends, right? It depends on like what the tasks are. If they're deeply creative, important tasks, I feel like you should give each one your independent thorough focus. Of course, if you've got a bunch of papers on your desk, you got to pay some bills here and talk to someone on the phone at the same time while you're texting someone, like that's fine in short bursts because they're not critical moments. But critical moments, critical thoughts, critical explorations, talking to somebody who it's an important conversation. I think all those things should be very singularly focused. You should be singularly focused on those things versus trying to do two things at once. I think it's fun to do two or three things at once when those things don't matter. And it's pretty obvious what it's like when things just don't matter, because that's when you tend to multitask. If you're on the phone with someone for a while and you don't care and whatever, you end up picking up your phone or some other phone or messing around the computer because you're like just stuck on some call. Well, you're multitasking because you don't like to do the primary thing you're supposed to be doing. But when you're really into the thing you're supposed to be doing, you don't want to do two things at once. So I think that's also a really good indicator of what's worth doing is, can this sustain your attention or not?
One thing that I think I do that helps, and I think you do something similar to this, but it's like I'm not a fan of multitasking. I mean, I think we keep hearing over and over again too from people who study this that we can't, humans really, we think we can multitask, but we can't. Like you can't actually do two things at the same time. And that's why people get in trouble with like driving and texting and driving and talking on the phone they can't even do. There's all these studies that people who are even talking hands-free, so they're just having a conversation in the car, drive worse. Like people really can't drive and talk and have a meaningful conversation with somebody at the same time and drive as well. They make mistakes. And so so every day in the morning, I know I've got a million things to do. At High Rise, we've planned we have a game plan of like all the stuff that we want to do that goes on for over a year. Like there's just so much stuff that we want to accomplish. But every day, all I do is I find 2 to 3 things that I'm going to work on today. And I know I'm not even going to finish these things today. So it's like out of all of that stuff, I try to just narrow down a list of 2 to 3 things that I'm going to focus on. And I only pick 3 because sometimes sometimes something gets stuck. Like I'm working on something right now. I got to wait until this person finishes. I'm working with somebody else. I got to wait until they get their part done. So I have to move on to the next thing. But I'm very careful about just only picking a few things at a time versus trying to pay attention to that whole mess of things. And it's an exercise that I do almost every single morning. Like what are just the 2 or 3 things that are actually important that I think I can get done? I'm not going to try and do them all at the same time.
Yep. Cool. We've got maybe 2 or 3 more minutes. Cool. Anything else you wanted to chat about? There's one question I guess we could throw up here, but I'll throw it up.
Yeah.
Zane always asks great questions. It's kind of a I'm so bad at these questions. I kind of I have a hard time answering that. I don't know. Do you want to start, or do you have any thoughts on this? Things you're looking forward to that are like trends that are coming on that for whatever reason, work, life, whatever it is, anything outside?
I have become very allergic to trends, and I've shared some of this stuff in stuff I've written and stuff on the show. But like I've gotten stuck. I've gotten attracted to trends, and it's just fucked me over. Like I swear to God, like that what I was doing before draft, I was very attracted to like the trend of like online gaming and how popular that was becoming. And I was just constantly seeking this kind of shiny thing that was interesting to everybody. It was when, Farmville was doing very well and Zynga was doing very well. And I was attracted like, oh, this interesting trend of gaming is really cool. So I went towards it. And in the end, it didn't satisfy me long enough. It was just kind of like a fad. It was a fad to me personally. And I feel like it was a fad to, Zynga has done very poorly kind of after that. And it's obviously gaming isn't going anywhere. People are going to still enjoy gaming, but it was a lesson to me to like stay away from the shiny things just because they're shiny, stick with things that are more fundamental. And so I'm trying to stay away from fads. If something, I'm trying to do the opposite. Like I look at our website, even for High Rise, and it's like, I'm tempted to just go all text, very simple, go back to the beginning and see if I can communicate something better there before we introduce any kind of fancy graphics or any kind of anything fancy, anything that could even resemble a trend of how web design is going. So I'm like the wrong person to ask about this. I'm trying to like close my eyes to all the fancy stuff, new stuff that people are getting interested in.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I hope that trying to think about. I hope there's more of a trend, if there's any trends that I hope to see. It's like there's a trend towards a bit more of a sustainable work day. Now, I'm not seeing this trend develop, by the way. I'm seeing it go the opposite way, which is more always on, better be available 24/7 kind of stuff. So like the trend I would like to see is a little bit more of a return to a more traditional work day. Not that it has to be 9 to 5, but that 40-ish hours a week would be a wonderful thing to see. I don't think we're going to see that this year, and I think that this is another epidemic that's on the way, which is further pushing of work into life, and not a healthy move, I don't think, but it is what it is, and it's happening, and so that's that. But so anyway, that was like a sort of a buzzkill answer, which is that the trends I see out there, I'm not particularly excited about this year around. I'm certain there'll be some interesting stuff that comes out though that will be really cool. I will tell you this: that I was talking to Nathan on the way back from lunch. I just started getting into a FanDuel, which is single day fantasy sports, which is just the thing I like about this is not even the fantasy sports aspect of it, which is cool, of course, but it's the compression of an idea down into a moment, which like a tradition when I grew up, fantasy sports was like you draft for the whole year. I know that still exists and is extremely popular still because it's actually more fun in some ways to have a whole season, right? But I always never really got into fantasy sports because I didn't want to make the commitment for a year to draft a team and kind of follow it. It just wasn't for me. And a few days ago, I mean, I'm late to this, but like a few days ago, a friend of mine's like, check out FanDuel's like one day fantasy sports. And I just love the idea of that concept, which is that for years and forever, it's basically been almost a full season. And then all of a sudden this company comes around. There's another one, DraftKings. And maybe this has been going on for a while. I just wasn't aware of it. But I think it's a really clever idea and a really neat thought. And it is kind of it's not necessarily, this isn't really part of the trend thing, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Things that used to take a long, long time, what can just be shorter? So you can experience it. Like I can now experience fantasy sports. I can get better at it as I go and improve on it as I go, because I can change up my teams every day versus drafting a team in the beginning of the season and kind of being stuck with it. So I just kind of like that idea of redos all the time. I think that's kind of a neat thought, but it's not really an answer to the trend question. It's just something that's been on my mind.
No, that's interesting. There is a trend though, I think, of trying to well, anyway, we'll but yeah, that's it. That was good. That was very interesting.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, anyway. Cool. Thank you, Zane.
If we have one more, we'll take this one next time. Make sure you come back and ask it. We'll be back tomorrow around the same time.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.